Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dr. Pajet Monet.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I was going to jump right into it. As he said, my name is Pajet Monet, and I have been given the extraordinary privilege of introducing our keynote speaker this morning. I say privilege because in the 20 years I have known this man, I have watched him quietly change the lives of millions of children, and I don't use that word lightly. But before I tell you about him, let me tell you a little bit about me. When I first met Roger Billings, I was at the very beginning of my educational journey, and I had no plan. If you had asked me what I wanted to do with my life, I would have told you that I wanted to be a professional dancer, or I wanted to have something to do with horses, which I still have a love for horses, and I think I always will. But what I am trying to say is that my expectations for my own future were, to put it kindly, less than ambitious. When I met Roger, everything changed. He was the one who looked at me and said, "You are capable of far more than you can imagine." And then he proved it, not by giving me anything, but by demanding more of me than anyone had. I went on to earn a doctorate in electrical engineering with an emphasis in technology marketing. Then I decided to test my wings. I started my own company, Comtech Networking, selling advanced networking products to major corporations and the United States military. Out of roughly 200 dealerships worldwide, my goal was to become the largest. And I will put in there, I'm very competitive. And I did within 7 years. Spoiler alert, the networking products I was selling were manufactured by Wideband Corporation, one of the companies Dr. Billings founded. He was genuinely impressed when I became his top reseller. I like to think he may be a little proud of me as well. But I walked away from that success voluntarily because Roger showed me something more important than building wealth. He showed me a vision for transforming education in America. When he asked me to become a certified teacher because he needed it, and I quote, he said, "Someone good to teach millions of students social and emotional education," I could not say no. It has turned out to be the most fulfilling work of my career. I have bonded with students across this country who have reached out to me, and especially with those who have traveled to Kansas City for their graduation ceremony. Those moments are the ones I treasure the most. Now let me tell you about the man you are about to hear from, because some of what he has accomplished is genuinely hard to believe. Roger Billings won the science fair 3 consecutive years in high school. In his final year, at the age of 17, he built the world's first hydrogen-powered automobile. Now let that settle in for a moment. At 17 years old, this young man from Provo, Utah, built a car that ran on hydrogen, a feat that major automobile manufacturers had yet not achieved. At Brigham Young University, where he studied chemistry, physics, and 3 branches of engineering simultaneously, he won the prestigious Clean Air car race with his hydrogen Volkswagen, a victory that generated over 1,000 press clippings and brought him to national attention. He went on to build hydrogen-powered buses and vehicles for major automakers and the United States Department of Energy. He designed and lived in the world's first hydrogen house. Time magazine recognized his pioneering work in clean energy. After graduating from BYU, Roger had the life-changing experience of being mentored by the legendary Bill Lear, the man behind Motorola and the Learjet. Lear himself had been mentored in his early 20s by Thomas Edison. Think about that chain for a minute. Edison to Lear to Billings. That year with Lear had a profound impact on Roger's life. He often quotes Lear's famous advice: most people never achieve their goals because they have not decided what their goals are. To this day, Dr. Billings makes sure that every student he mentors has serious goals and a serious plan to achieve them. But hydrogen was only the beginning. Dr. Billings went on to build the Billings computer, one of the first personal computers developed before Apple and IBM entered the market. A young company called Microsoft got its start writing for the Billings computer, and much of their early revenue came from the contracts with his company. He created the award-winning Billings word processor, which was a forerunner of WordPerfect. And one of his most significant inventions was client-server computing, the foundational architecture that would come to power the modern networked world. He later founded Wideband Corporation, a leader in advanced networking technology, and more recently developed the Gold Key security platform, which employs cutting-edge B-squared level cryptography. His doctoral research was supervised by some of the most distinguished scientists in the world, including Sir Geoffrey Pardoe, President of the Royal Aeronautical Society, and Dr. Willis Hawkins, President of Lockheed California and recipient of the National Medal of Science. With that extraordinary career behind him, a career that most inventors would consider a lifetime of achievement, Dr. Billings made a decision that surprised everyone who knew him. He turned his full attention to the children of America. He created the Acellus Learning System, a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, not as a business venture, not to build a fortune, as a way to give back to the students he loves, students who deserve an education system that actually works. Today, Acellus serves approximately 1 million active students across the United States. His weekly Science Live broadcast reaches more than 1 million viewers, young people who tune in every week to learn from Dr. Billings directly. Dr. Billings is a devoted father, a man of very deep faith, and a person who has dedicated the most productive years of his life to the mission of education. And this year, in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to education, Dr. Roger Billings was selected to receive the prestigious Klaus Nobel Educator of Distinction Award. Today, you are going to hear his vision for waking up education in America. You are going to hear about technologies that already are transforming children and the way they learn. And you are going to understand why 1 million families have entrusted their children's futures to this man and to the system he built. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and my personal privilege to introduce to you my mentor, my colleague, and one of the most remarkable human beings I have ever known, Dr. Roger Billings.
Wow. I had some things I really wanted to share with you, but we're out of time. Welcome to Kansas City. It's so wonderful to have you here. I love educators. Now I'm getting emotional, but I'm prepared. Educators are the caretakers of America's most precious asset. And I want to salute you and express my gratitude for the job you're doing. Keep it up. Keep it up. I have a lot to share with you today. Much of what I'm going to share has never been shared before. That's why I wrote it down, so I wouldn't miss anything. This is my cover page. Yes, it's true. I do have gray hair and I need glasses to read. When I moved to Missouri about 1 million years ago, I took my 5 daughters fishing on Lake Taneycomo. Now, Lake Taneycomo is some of the finest trout fishing in America. I was raised in Provo, Utah, so I knew all about catching trout, or so I thought. All around us, people were reeling in fish left and right, but us, we couldn't even get a single bite. Not one. You can imagine my feelings when my number 3 daughter looked up at me and said, "Dad, are we ever going to catch something?" Nothing in my life could have made me more determined. Early the next morning before the girls woke up, I was out on the lake with the man they said was the best fishing guide in the state of Missouri. Before I dipped my line in the water, he stopped me. He said, "With that 8-pound test line, you're never going to get a bite." See, on the Provo River, where we have a lot of rapids, it didn't matter. But Lake Taneycomo water flows from the bottom of a 300-foot dam, and it's very, very clear. I learned to fish where there were so many rapids, but crystal clear and perfectly still water, the fish could see my line. I was doing what I had always done, and it wasn't working because the conditions had changed. He gave me 2-pound test, invisible. That same afternoon, every one of my daughters caught at least one fish. Hooray. Now, if I tried to use that little fishing story to explain what's happening in education today, it would be too small. The problems we face in education is not just a change your line kind of a problem. So instead, I'm going to tell you a story about a woman named Pajet Monet. And I'll warn you up front, this time my story is just a story. It never really happened, but it sure makes my point. In this story, Pajet went fishing down at Lake Taneycomo. Now there's a limit of 4 trout per person, and only one of them can be a German brown. On the day of our story, Pajet was coming from the lake, her boat loaded with beautiful German brown lunkers, that means really big fish. Waiting for her on the dock was the conservation agent. When he saw those fish, he became outraged. That's not social. Now, you have to know that that's a word she invented to really appreciate that. He was shaking his fist, but Pajet just looked up at him, smiling, and said, "I'll bet you'd love to know my secret, how I caught so many big fish." Well, she had him. He had never in his life seen that many large German browns, and as an avid angler himself, the temptation was more than he could resist. "Be here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning," Pajet said, "and I'll teach you my secret." The next morning, the conservation agent took the day off. He was there by 9:30, loaded down with fishing poles, waders, tackle box, and even a fish net. Then Pajet pulled up in her white Mercedes. That part of the story's true. And climbed out, all dressed up, hair done, carrying nothing but a fancy gold lunch pail. She stepped into the boat in her dress, and they headed out onto the lake. The agent baited up, made his first cast. Pajet opened the lunchbox and took out a gourmet sandwich. From the corner of his eye, the agent watched her every bite. Finally, after a sip of kombucha, he heard her say, "It's time to fish." She reached back into the lunch pail and pulled out a stick of dynamite. She lit the fuse. The agent's eyes went wide as she tossed it over the water. A massive explosion. Stunned fish came floating up all around the boat. "Just the big brown," she said calmly, as the agent began to fume. Now, at this point in the story, I need to bleep a few of the words coming out of the conservation agent's mouth because he was really upset. He went on and on about every law she was breaking, every charge he was going to file, everything he was going to do, because you cannot fish with dynamite. It's illegal. Meanwhile, agent still yelling, Pajet perfectly calm, perfectly composed, perfectly social, opened her lunch pail one more time, pulled out a second stick of dynamite. She lit the fuse. She held it out to the conservation agent and said, "Are you going to fish or are you just going to talk?" Well, think about that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the question I'm here to ask you. For decades, we've been standing on the dock arguing about education. We have debated policies, we've passed legislation, we've held summits and written white papers and formed committees. Meanwhile, a generation of children has floated by. 22%. That's the percentage of American high school seniors who are proficient in math. That means that nearly 4 out of 5 will walk across the graduation stage this spring unprepared for the world waiting for them. If this were an airline, we would ground every plane. If this were a hospital, we would shut it down. But because it's our schools, we just keep going. Well, I didn't come here to talk. 18 years ago, I got into Acellus because education was broken. From my training as an engineer, I knew that if I could get inside the problem, I could figure out what was wrong, and then we could fix it. The deeper we went, the more complicated it got. And then came the thing that changed everything. Not because it fixed education, but because it broke it so completely that it could never be put back together again the way it was. COVID. COVID didn't just set students back. It shattered the illusion that the old system was working. It proved beyond any doubt that doing the same thing, the same way, with the same tools was never going to be enough. So today, I'm here to have another conversation about what's wrong with education. You already know what's wrong. I'm here to hand you the dynamite. The question is, are you going to fish or just talk? Let me tell you something that most people in education already know, but almost nobody wants to say out loud. When a student fails a math lesson, we do what we've always done. We reteach it. We slow down, we say it again louder, maybe with different words. And when that doesn't work, we say it again. And the student still doesn't get it, so we label him. We say they're behind. We say they lack motivation. We say they have a learning gap, and then we move on because the curriculum says it's time for the next lesson. But here is what we discovered when we got inside the problem. The student didn't fail because the lesson was bad. The student didn't fail because they aren't smart enough. The student failed because somewhere, maybe a year before, maybe 3 years ago, they missed something. A foundational concept, a building block. And without that piece, nothing built on top of it would ever make sense. Think of it this way. Imagine you're building a home. You get to the second floor, and the floor sags. Something is wrong. Now, what does our traditional education system do? It says, let's reteach you second floor construction. They go over the framing again. They hand you the same blueprints. Try a different teacher. But the floor still sags because the problem was never the second floor. The problem is a crack in the foundation. And until you go down, find that crack and fix it, nothing you do on the second floor is ever going to matter. That's what vectored instruction does. It doesn't reteach the same lesson. It goes down to the foundation. It finds the crack and it fixes it. Then the student comes back up to the second floor, and this time the floor holds. Now let me show you how it works, because this is where it gets extraordinary. When a student answers a question wrong, most systems just mark it wrong and move on. Acellus does something completely different. It looks at which wrong answer the student chose, because every wrong answer tells a story. We discovered through years of research that when a student gets a problem wrong, large percentages of them get the same wrong answer, not random guesses, predictable, patterned errors. And when you study those patterns, they reveal the specific foundational concept the student is missing. We call this technology Prism Diagnostics. Think of it like a prism. When you pass white light through a prism, it separates it into a spectrum of distinct colors based on the different wavelengths. In the same way, Prism Diagnostics takes a group of students who all get the same question wrong and splits them into distinct groups, each group revealing a different underlying deficiency. Same wrong answer on the surface, completely different reasons underneath. And here is the breakthrough. Once the system identifies the specific hole in a student's understanding, it responds instantly, right at that moment, with a customized lesson designed for that precise deficit. Not a generic review, not a one-size-fits-all remediation, a targeted intervention built to fill that one crack in the student's foundation. And vectored instruction doesn't just look at the current lesson. When a foundation deficiency is diagnosed, it goes as far back as necessary. If a 10th grader is struggling with algebra because of something they missed in the 5th grade, fractions, vectored instruction reaches back to the 5th grade, builds a targeted bridge of instruction to close the gap, and then brings the student forward again, all while keeping them enrolled in their grade level course, on track for credit, on time for graduation. This is critical. In the traditional system, if you're behind, you stay behind. You get pulled out. You get put in a remedial class. You lose your place. And the message that the student hears is, you're not good enough to be here where you're supposed to be. Vectored instruction sends a completely different message. It says, we know exactly what you're missing, and we're going to fix it right now, and you're going to keep moving forward. Just think. Now think about what this means for the teacher. Picture a 7th grade math class. Half the students are performing at 4th grade level. The other half are at a 6th grade level. The curriculum says, teach 7th grade math. What does that teacher do? She teaches the middle and loses everyone. The top students are bored, the bottom students are lost, and the teacher goes home exhausted, demoralized, feeling like a failure. But the teacher didn't fail. The system failed the teacher. It put her in an impossible situation and said, make it work. The teacher teaches to the middle and loses everyone. With vectored instruction, every student in that classroom is getting instruction exactly at the level they need. Not where the curriculum says they should be, but where they actually are. The gaps get filled in real time. The students move forward at their own pace, and the teacher is finally free to do what only a human teacher can do: mentor, inspire, lead discussions, and give attention where it matters most. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, that sounds good in theory. Does it actually work? Let me tell you about Community of School of Holy Angels. Holy Angels is a school dedicated to students in special education, students with severe learning challenges, the students that everyone else has given up on, except you guys. They were selected as one of the first schools in the nation to pilot Acellus Gold with vectored instruction. Quote, in one school year, 1 year, math scores rose by up to 40%. English scores improved by 24%. These students in special education, the ones the system says couldn't keep up. One student at Holy Angels came from a non-English speaking household. She was on the autism spectrum and struggled to communicate. After working with Acellus Gold and vectored instruction, she began speaking fluent English. This is not a statistic. This is a child whose life was changed. That is what happens when you stop guessing where a student is struggling and start knowing. That's what happens when you find the hole and you fill it. For 18 years, the question that's driven everything we do at Acellus is this: why can't this child learn? And what we discovered over and over again is that the child can learn. The child wants to learn, but somewhere along the way, a piece went missing and nobody went back to find it. Vectored instruction goes back and finds it. You know, I started this talk with a fishing story. I told you about a man from Utah who couldn't catch a fish in Missouri because he was using the wrong line. The conditions had changed, and he had to change with them. Education is no different. The conditions have changed. The students sitting in classrooms today are not the same students who sat there 20 years ago. The gaps are deeper, the challenges are greater, and the old tools, the old line cannot catch these fish. Vectored instruction is not an incremental improvement. It's not a new textbook or a new teaching method or a new policy. It's a fundamentally different way of teaching students. One that starts by understanding exactly where each child is, goes back as far as necessary to build what was missing, and then brings them forward. This is dynamite. Now, I want to talk to you about something every teacher, every parent, and every superintendent in this room has wrestled with: motivation. You can have the most brilliant curriculum ever designed. You can have vectored instruction, finding every gap and filling it perfectly. But if the student doesn't want to sit down and do the work, none of it matters. And this is the honest truth about where we are today. We are competing for our students' attention against some of the most sophisticated engagement systems ever built. Think about it. Video games, social media, streaming platforms. These are multi-billion-dollar industries with armies of engineers whose entire job is to make sure your child cannot look away. They use reward loops, achievement systems, points, levels, streaks, everything designed to trigger that feeling of, I did something, I earned something, I want to keep going. And then we send the same child to school and say, work hard for a letter grade you won't see for 6 weeks. Is it any wonder they check out? So we asked ourselves a question: what if a school felt more like winning? Not dumbed down, not turned into a game, but what if the same psychology that makes apps so addictive, the feeling of earning, achieving, and being rewarded for effort, could be harnessed for learning? That is the Acellus Gold store. This is how it works. In Acellus Gold, students earn gold credits for mastering concepts, completing assignments, and demonstrating real academic achievement. The harder they work, the more they earn. And these credits are not abstract. They're not a number on a screen that means nothing. Those credits can be spent in the gold store, a real store, right there in the school, stocked with things students really want: hoodies, backpacks, STEM robots, school supplies, Acellus gear they can wear with pride. Now I want you to picture a student like this. A student walks into school wearing an Acellus hoodie she earned by mastering her math course. Her friend sees it and says, "How'd you get that?" And she says, "I earned it." That is completely different conversation than anything that happens with a report card. That hoodie is visible, it's tangible, it's a badge of honor, and suddenly the culture shifts. Working hard in school becomes something to be proud of. It becomes something your peers notice. It becomes cool. I've watched this happen in school after school. Students who were disengaged, who had given up, who saw no point in trying, they start earning gold credits and something changes. It's not just the reward, it's the recognition. For the first time, the system is telling them, your effort matters. Your hard work has value. And here's the proof. But here's what really matters about the gold store. It's not about the hoodies and the backpacks. It's about teaching students a fundamental life lesson. Effort produces results. In the real world, when you work hard, you get rewarded. When you develop a skill, opportunities open up. When you show up and give your best, good things happen. That is how life works. But school, traditional school, has never taught that lesson. You work hard for 12 years, and what do you get? A piece of paper at graduation, maybe a handshake. The gold store creates what the apps and games have always understood, a real economy of achievement. The currency is effort, the reward is immediate, and the lesson that what you put in determines what you get out stays with that student for the rest of their lives. Now, everywhere I go, I hear the question, is Acellus going to replace teachers? Let me be very, very clear. No. And that was never the point. There is a false choice being presented in education today. On the one side, you have people saying technology is the future. Put every kid in front of a screen and let software handle it. On the other side, you have people saying technology is the enemy. Go back to the basics. Go back to the chalkboard and let the teachers teach. They're both wrong. The answer is not technology or teachers. The answer is technology and teachers, working together in a way that has never been possible before, and that is what Gold Spark is. Gold Spark learning is built on a simple, powerful structure. 40 minutes of personalized digital instruction through Acellus, followed by 20 minutes of live teacher-led special lessons. Every class, every day. We call it the 40-20 model. In the first 40 minutes, every student in the classroom is learning at their own level, at their own pace. Vectored instruction is finding gaps and filling them in. Prism Diagnostics is identifying deficiencies in real time. The Gold Credit system is keeping them engaged and motivated. Every child is getting a truly personalized education, something that has never been possible in a traditional classroom with one teacher and 30 students. Then the teacher steps in for 20 minutes. But here's what makes this different. Those 20 minutes are not for the same 20 minutes the teacher used to have. In a traditional 60-minute class, the teacher lectures for 40 minutes to the whole group, one speed, one level, take it or leave it, and then has 20 minutes left over for individual help. 20 minutes for 30 students. That's 40 seconds per child. In Gold Spark, the equation is flipped. The technology handles the personalized instruction for 40 minutes. Then the teacher steps in for 20 minutes of what we call special lessons. And those 20 minutes are powerful because now the teacher is not trying to deliver content to 30 students at different levels. The content has already been delivered individually, personally. The teacher is free to do what only a human teacher can do. Lead a discussion, run a project, do a hands-on experiment, look a struggling student in the eye and say, I see you're working hard and I'm proud of you. Facilitate debate, build critical thinking, spark curiosity, model what it means to be a thoughtful human being. That's what teachers were born to do. And for too long, the system has buried them under content delivery and test prep and paperwork. Gold Spark doesn't take teachers away from the students. It gives teachers back to the students. These 20-minute special lessons are designed to go deeper. The teacher uses Acellus-provided resources, lesson outlines, projected videos, discussion guides to lead collaborative learning experiences, project-based learning, peer discussions, hands-on demonstrations, the kind of higher-order thinking that you simply cannot get from a screen. And because the teacher has real-time data from the digital phase, the teacher knows exactly what the students need and understand where they struggled. Those special lessons are not one size fits all. They are targeted, informed, and effective. Let me put it plainly. In a traditional classroom, every student gets the same instruction whether they're ready for it or not. In Gold Spark, every student gets 40 minutes of instruction tailored exactly to their level, plus 20 minutes of the best thing in education, a real, live, caring teacher, giving them the teacher's full attention. That is not replacing teachers, that is honoring them. It is saying you are too valuable to waste on tasks a machine can do better. We're going to free you up to do the things that no machine will ever do. Teachers are not the problem in education. Teachers are the answer, but they need the right tools, and Gold Spark gives them those tools. I want to just interject that during that first 40 minutes, the teacher has the interface telling them right where every student is, and the interface in Acellus sorts their 30 students into who needs help the most. So they can see, and if they happen to go red, boy, they need your help right now. So they can sit and work one-on-one with the students during that first 40 minutes. And that last 20 minutes, well, that's where we're going to build character. That's where we're going to really build values and help students figure out how this world works. This new Gold Spark education is new. It's new. I've published a couple papers on it, but the data's starting to come back, and it really, really works in a brick and mortar environment. In fact, I'm willing to go on the record and say that it is the best learning system that we have been able to observe and test so far. When you have that 40 minutes where the students work in front of the computer, it is so different if you have someone right there monitoring, motivating, encouraging. If they start getting tired and just guessing, the teacher's immediately informed, hey, Billy's just guessing again. Teacher goes over, and Billy's back at work. It's so different to have that. So it's like having absolutely the best of both worlds. Some parents are able to be right with their students at home and help them, and some parents are teachers. But I'll tell you what, when you combine the online teaching of Acellus with all the tools it has built into it, with a caring professional teacher right there making it all happen, that to me is the ultimate in education. I don't think we've had anyone that's been able to figure out anything better. I want now to take you back 60 years to 1966. A high school senior in Utah is working in his garage. He has an idea that everyone around him says is impossible. He wants to build a car that runs on hydrogen, so there will be no pollution in the exhaust, just water. Now, his father is not a rich man, but his father believes in him, and his father does something extraordinary. He gives his son a Model A Ford, not a new car, a broken down Model A, and he says, essentially, if you believe you can do this, then show me. The teenager took that Model A, rebuilt the engine to run on hydrogen, entered it in the International Science Fair, and won the Gold and Silver Award. A kid from Utah with a big idea and a father that believed in him. That teenager was me. I tell you that story not to talk about hydrogen or science fairs. I would like to. I tell you that story because it explains everything that has happened in my life since. From hydrogen to computers, from computers to cryptography, from cryptography now to education. The through line of my entire life has been a single conviction. Knowledge is the most powerful force on earth, and every child deserves access to it. In 1966, a father gave his son the tools and the belief to do something extraordinary. That is what education is supposed to do. It's supposed to take a young person, hand them the tools and say, I believe you can do something great, now show me. But for millions of children in America today, that is not what's happening. They are sitting in a classroom where nobody knows what they're missing. They're falling further and further behind every day and being told that it's their fault. They're losing faith in school, in themselves, in the idea that education can change their life. I'm the father of 36 children. Every single one of them has to be educated. Every single one of them matters to me more than any business, any invention, any award I've ever received. I know what it means to worry about whether or not your child is getting the education they need. I know what it means to sit in the kitchen table at midnight helping with homework. I built Acellus because I wanted something better for my kids. And then I realized that every kid deserves the same thing. When I fight for education, I'm not fighting for a product. I'm not fighting for a company. I'm fighting for the same thing every parent in this room is fighting for, a future for our children. Every day a child falls behind. The gap grows wider. Every semester a student is disconnected. The window for reaching them narrows. We do not have the luxury of waiting for the system to fix itself. The bureaucrats who write letters from their office about programs they've never seen are not going to save these children. The institutions that care more about protecting their market share than educating the kids are not going to save them. We are going to save them, and we're going to do it now. 60 years ago in a garage, believed that science could change the world. I still believe it. Today, I have shown you the tools, vectored instruction that finds the holes and fills it, Prism Diagnostics that sees what no teacher can see alone, the Gold Store that makes hard work feel like recognition, Gold Spark that puts the power of personalized learning and the irreplaceable value of a great teacher together in the same classroom. These are not ideas on a whiteboard. They are working right now in schools across this country, changing lives, one student at a time. I started today with a question Pajet Monet asked the conservation agent. Now I'm going to ask it one last time, not as a joke, not as a story, but as a challenge from one person who loves children to a room full of people that feel the same way. Are you going to fish or just talk? Because I'm handing you dynamite, and the fuse is already lit. What are you going to do with it? That's up to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and be with us. I hope you can feel the passion I feel for what we're doing. There's nothing more important than these children. They're our greatest asset. We can fail at a lot of things, but we can't fail these kids. May God bless us. Thank you.